Let's get back to our top story then. This apparent U-turn by the government over whether cigarettes should be sold in plain packaging. Sue Jameson, our political editor, is at Westminster. So I think back in the summer we were saying this wasn't going to happen at all, and now it is. Why?
Well, there's the official number 10 reason, and then there's all the political speculation. Yes, it seems in July the Prime Minister was kicking this into the long grass, saying we need more evidence. Labour immediately said, oh dear, you're going in with the tobacco lobby here. Ed Miliband delivering a killer quote saying he was Prime Minister of the Benson and Hedge Fund. The Prime Minister, of course, swiftly denied that. But you have now got the Labour Party and health campaigners with a really open goal here. The Prime Minister doesn't like that. There's also a group of cross-party peers who are going to be trying to force the issue this week with the Children and Families Bill. And of course, this could therefore be a preemptive strike, particularly as 81% of those in Australia with the plain packets would consider quitting. And the Prime Minister doesn't like hopping on a back foot. It's not good for dad dancing. It's not good for a Prime Minister.
Indeed. Lovely images conjured up there by you. Thank you very much, Sue. We're joined now by Labour Shadow Public Health Minister Luciana Berger and Sam Clark from Smokers Campaign Group Forest. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Luciana, I imagine you're quite pleased about this, are you? Even though it's sort of a bit late in the day.
Well, Labour supports the immediate introduction of standardised packaging of tobacco products. The government have already done a review. The Department of Health did a really comprehensive one when we had a consultation, and the review showed that the evidence is very compelling, and this is something we should be doing now. So we were going to wait and see what the government's details on this are, but essentially this is yet another review of what they've already done.
So what they're doing is they're going to look at what's happening in Australia as well, aren't they, which was the first place in the world to introduce this standardised packaging. But even the evidence from that isn't great, is it, in the sense that it says something like 81% of people who have used these brown packaged cigarette boxes say they would consider quitting. Doesn't mean that they will quit. It's sort of quite a vague thing to base an entire change of law on, isn't it?
Well, I come back to the review that the Department of Health has already done, and again, it's very, very compelling. They've also looked at a further 17 studies which shows that standardised packaging, it puts off young people from starting, and that's essentially what we're discussing here, stopping the next generation from taking up smoking in the first place, when 570 young people every day will light up for the first time.
What is also compelling, though, Simon, is that 500,000 people are against this here, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the consultation that took place got over 700,000 responses, a massive response. And as you say, 500,000 were against it. Now, if the government's going to turn around and simply ignore the results of its own public consultation, I think that brings politics into disrepute.
What does standardised packaging actually achieve? Does it stop people being attracted to being smokers in the first place, or does it actually put off people carry on smoking?
Well, the reality is we don't know, because only one country in the world has introduced it, that's Australia. We're coming up to the first anniversary of that, and frankly, it's going to take years before we find out what effect it is. I mean, I would argue that there's very, very few smokers who take up smoking because of packaging. I mean, Luciana might sort of have something knowledge on this, because obviously Luciana's smoked in the past, and it's simply not true that people go into a shop and are impressed by the packaging and start smoking on impulse.
But there isn't anywhere else they advertise now, so the packaging has become more important, hasn't it, in terms of what people see they are attracted to. And if it is completely sort of almost anonymous, really, behind the shop counter, children don't really notice it there.
Well, the packaging is there to get existing smokers to switch from one brand to another. And I think any new policy like this has to be evidence-based. Bear in mind, we've still got the display ban coming in. That's not come into small shops yet. So surely we have to wait for that to come in before we then leap in with another piece of policy, which will, I don't think will have any effect.
Luciana, final word to you. We're skirting around the real issue here. Why not ban smoking?
Well, we have to start with lots of other things first. And again, the point about this policy...
You'd like to ban it eventually?
The point about this policy is about stopping the next generation of young people from smoking in the first place. I know how challenging it can be to give up smoking. And essentially, we know that the majority of people that start under the age of 18, this is about a childhood addiction issue rather than
Why
an issue...
did you start smoking?
Well, the packages, I remember very clearly that they were very shiny, they were long, and they were kind of alluring. I remember those shiny boxes very, very clearly, and that's ultimately what standardised packaging is seeking to address, with those very clear warnings as well, so people know what the damages are.
But we mustn't forget that this could set off a greater illicit trade, and that's far more dangerous for children, because counterfeit cigarettes and cheap illicit cigarettes will get into the hands of children.
We'll have to leave it there. David Cameron's due to make this announcement later, but thank you both for starting that debate this morning.